Welcome, everybody, to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. I guess you could accept an argument from Mud Flood was Armageddon. I forgot to throw that in there now. I have all kinds of tabs pulled up. Not really thrilled with my introduction so far because it's so hard, to get into, in my mind, I'm going back to the Stones. I autopsied a Trilobite. I said I was going to do it, said what I should find, and went ahead and do it. And I don't, so I just want to compare, people like Dr. Heiser, the one who I have in my sights right now, who's, I think, taking the mainstream down the Atlantis road or giving them more credit than they deserve. So here's what I wrote down. I'm going to pick up in the middle of a sentence again. Once again, I try to engage in conversation. How's the weather? How's the family? Did you know that I consider my received gift of faith irrevocable? Irrevocable as my calling to serve the Lord. The gift and calling of God for me is why I'm telling you today to test mine and other men's words against what I'm teaching and what the Bible really says. So let's compare all callings of the Lord. I don't think are the same. And you should be able to, if you're called to preach, you should be able to remember when you were called to preach. Leaving everything behind to follow his word is the advice that I have applied to my calling. Personally, I'm pleased with the results. But it's different for those called to preach something new. I mean, brand new, as I was called to teach that you can autopsy trilobites because the rocks are body parts stored in judgment. And that's something that, was leading to exactly what I've been teaching. That the golden age was past, that the rocks were crying out. And I mean, Randy and I, and then Tommy took over co-hosting when Randy had to take a leave. We grew from 3,000 to 9,000 subscribers in a year and a half. After doing it, for the first 5 years, we got down to it and we said, it's time to start drilling the rocks and saying, if these are really body parts, quit holding them up and saying, hey, look, it looks like a duck. And we said, if this really is a heart, you should be able to cut it and trace it and see if it's the muscle reserved in it. I finally got on my new computer the pictures from the old, from my phone, and it has a lot of pictures of the stones. Hopefully we'll get to some today. So if anybody wants to compare what we're doing with their other people that are calling to make a lot of money, which is not selling everything and follow the Lord where it goes. All calls are not the same. Leaving everything behind to follow his word is the advice I have applied to my calling. Personally, I'm pleased with the results, but it's different for those called to preach something new, as I have been called to teach. Golden age past, Armageddon is over, the rocks are crying out, earth is a model of God's eye. The shock for everyone was understandable, but it is true. It's taught in the Bible, so it's unstoppable. There will be one more rescue. It was always planned. You studying the mud flood Armageddon and everything have gotten a heads up. So today, I am going to question the call of others who claim that they're just happy as can be to be living on Rome's globe and accepting their Trinity, because it's everybody else did, so we do too. And if you go against Rome's globe and their idea of the Trinity, and the Protestants being forced to accept, well, I guess you're still our brothers and sisters in the Lord, even if you were burning people alive who questioned your authority on that topic. So switch to next final notebook here. My life is not my own. I have been bought by God. Past tense, present sense. So this is happening real time. In cycles repeating, for our works will be reviewed, not in haste or in a spirit of rashness. We will all discover that we did not create ourselves. We did not even know we were lost and blind, evil, not kind, until God spoke or poked your heart to be able to hear Lord Jesus say, "Come unto me," with new eyes and ears, and discern your point in history. When the rocks are revealed and those gold vessels are revealed that Ezekiel talks about to be images of the gold-tipped nerves that are held in tellurides that are poured out in praise before your pineal gland, in the spirit, not in the flesh. And that was capable before. You'll realize we're going places that no one else has ever gone before, and we don't need the Kabbalah. We don't need mythical angels who weren't made for sex but could breed with regular women and make all of these other things. No, the Bible explains everything. And when they realized those gold-tipped nerves, tellurides held in the mountains of the ancient Nephilim, and then they realized the size of the Trilobite that I'm going to be showing you, that I autopsied, and that a regular midbrain is about this big, and there's Trilobites that are this big. That's because there were Nephilim. There were mighty men. There were God created Elohims also. What is going to be hard for Dr. Heiser and a lot of other people is that Scripture teaches, because we're going to be going over some of his videos, like, when did all of this happen? When did sin come into the world? Was it Adam and Eve? Well, didn't a snake already, or a serpent, a fallen being, show up ready to do wrong already? So how did sin enter with Adam and Eve? I ask you that question. I didn't mean to get all worked up, but basically it's all about the calling. If you can't answer that question right off the bat, then you haven't been studying here, or you need to study here more, or you need to be still and know that he is God. And he left us this Bible, and we don't need anything else except the word that's written on our heart. And realize that when it comes down to the Spirit of the law or the letter, the Spirit is better. Amen. Hallelujah. And the law has been fulfilled. So let's get going. I looked up autopsy of Trilobite. Not sure what this one, if this is going to be how they prepare it, but what they'll do is, they find a rock, and then, basically they'll carve out the Trilobite. They know where to make it. And so that's your fossil because you can outline what the body was going to be doing anyway? Oh, please, people, please. Oh, I had these pulled up because this is referring to why is wisdom referred to in a Bible? Is it really? There's a lot of things we're going to have to get over before we get into this. Today, we've got time.
As Dr. Heiser reveals the book of Hebrews to us, there came up a discussion in regards to wisdom as feminine. So in Luke 7, verse 31 through 35, Jesus himself states, quote, "But wisdom is vindicated by all her children," end quote. Is it fair to say that Jesus, the Son of Man, is referring he is one of wisdom's children? Is it possible that the Father God and Mother Wisdom begot the Word who created all things as one of her children? Oh.
And Dr. Heiser is going to, quash that idea, but it's his theology that brings it to the mainstream as a possibility with his Enochian mysteries. And this is the guy that ran the $15,000 a year Logos Bible software if you get their Platinum Plus package. You might be able to pick up something for $1,000. But this is the guy that, is changing the world. They bought him a new church to teach all of this stuff. Let's just see where he takes it, because not what I found when I compared the scriptures to what he was saying.
Well, if we went back to the prior sentence, that this idea that Jesus was one of wisdom's children, if you define wisdom as God himself, as another aspect of person, I'm using Godhead language here deliberately, and we're still talking about God, well, that would be another way of talking about Jesus as the Son of God. Okay, then you'd be okay. But following it up with Father God and Mother Wisdom, as though there's some sort of cosmic cohabitation here between two distinct entities. And the key word there is distinct entities. Two ontologically distinct entities, and then producing Jesus, then there's a problem. And the problem really comes from reading gender terms in the translation, Proverbs 8 to Luke 7, whatever it is. Proverbs 8 is the origin point for a lot of this, when we have wisdom as being God's agent of creation, Proverbs 8:22 and following. And wisdom being referred to in feminine terms. So when we read that in translation, we think of wisdom as a woman, and that is the way in Proverbs that wisdom is cast. We have the wisdom as a woman, and then we have the woman known as folly. That these two are contrasted in Proverbs to teach certain precepts, certain ethics, standards of ethics and morals. Now you have to ask yourself, well, how do we parse that? Why is that done? I actually have a paper on this that's freely accessible online. If you go to www.thedivinecouncil, it's THEDIVINECOUNCIL.com, thedivinecouncil.com, and look for the paper entitled Jesus and the Wisdom Figure of Proverbs 8. Part of the issue is that this language, this feminine language, should not be confused with gender. Okay, biological gender, so that we don't have a dad and a mom. Okay, when we talk about God and wisdom, we don't have that. We don't have this cosmic cohabitation that produces Jesus and all that sort of thing. The gender, the reason the translations are the way they are is because languages, inflected languages, those are languages that have like verb endings and noun endings, and then the endings have to match up for subject-verb agreement grammatically. Anybody who's had Spanish or German or French or Greek and Hebrew, for that matter, will know what I'm talking about here. Is English is not a gendered or an inflected-driven language. English is largely driven by word order, as opposed to a set of endings and whatnot. But other languages, lots of other languages, require grammatical gender for all words, all nouns, and what are called finite verb forms, so that you can match up a noun with the verb. You can tell what is the subject of the verb as opposed to what's the object of the verb. To do that, languages use grammatical gender. It has nothing to do with biological gender. My favorite illustration of this is in German. In German, das Mädchen, it's a term that means little girl, is neuter. It's grammatically neuter. Obviously, little girls are girls. They're not neuter, hermaphroditic, whatever. Okay, it's just a good illustration. But German, like Spanish, like French, like whatever, words for hammer, words for wall, words for straw, words for glass, words for, corner, words for car, they all have gender. It has nothing to do with biology. And so we have to realize that this is just a classification system that languages share, and this is how they do it. Gender, number, is it singular, plural? Some languages have a dual, where you have a pair, not more than two, not one, just two. You have that separate numerical category. Gender, number are the big ones. You also have case systems and whatnot, but these are all classification features.
All right. Well, let's just look at a few of them. Want to just say hi and thank everybody. Matt, I appreciate it. He's the only one chatting right now. Got 5, 6 lurkers out there. But let's check it out. We'll check it out. Yet wisdom is justified by her children. So we know that, there are some people who want to act like, a father and mother God. And it does say lifted up her voice. And that's good. I checked that out. It looks like every time with Kola, it is her voice, her voice, her voice. Oh, wait, the sound. In the New American, its sound moves along like a serpent. There is an outcry, the noise of it has been heard in Jeremiah, a cry, the noise, her voice. So are they really, since this is the 5 out of 507 occurrences where they just use this word? And here it is, I do see a little extra here. This is the same as her voice and her voice. It's not quite the same as that one. This one is like the first one, but it's not her voice. So, we get it, but we just don't think they're being honest with us. I know I don't. So, but we do, that's leaning towards wisdom. And of course, wisdom in the Old Testament, it isn't Sophia. It doesn't mean, Sophia's a girl's name. It's wisdom. It's just, it's the spirit of wisdom. 70, half the time it's this word. The others are just spread out with the prefix, suffix as different. It's a pretty strong root word. It's a skill here. I put skill in their hands. Some people, man, you can feed them the same, put them to bed at night the same time. One of them are going to grow up and be a fantastic fiddle player, and the other one, like me, can can count to 4, but that's about it. Where's the frets, we might be asking on your fiddle, things like that, but some people just pick it right up and there they go. They got God-given skills, wisdom, talent. And that's the deal. You've all been given talent, and you're going to be held accountable for that talent that's been given to you. Skill, wisdom. Solomon had some wisdom. The whole thing, that, wisdom is a woman. I'd like stronger proof Not just because I'm tired of arguing with the New Agers when I go there, and they, it's like, I'm a sympath. Okay, I bet you are. So here's this word, auto. No. Let's see what that other, does wisdom raise her voice? I, wisdom, dwell with prudence. We'll look that one up. I have counsel and sound wisdom, Old Testament words. Were they the ones that it's just, that's the same one, but it's only 4 of 5 because it has the we in front of it. Boy, does the New American Standard go, it is not with me and that deliverance, all by adding that. Wow. Huh. There you go. Sound wisdom, they just stuck with the sound wisdom here. So there, we got to look up wisdom, man. It's going to be a long show. Understanding is not wisdom. Seek after knowledge, seek after understanding, discern the words, Proverbs 1:2. Didn't he write these for our, Solomon wrote these down. He said they worked hard on gathering and compiling them and making them perfect. It was John Dee and Francis Bacon and those guys who tried to mess it up with their sigillistic magics. We'll get it figured out because God promises that at the very end, some people will be made wise and they will understand. What was that other 12? Did this one have 12 in their wisdom? Proverbs 8:14. It doesn't have the other wisdom. So you can't, he's not going to solve that in a soundbite of 20 minutes of, but I've got some more things figured up here. We'll get to them. He sure doesn't believe that he drew a circle on the face of the deep. I know that. They don't want to have anything to do with that. Their fountains of the deep are in the middle of a globe. He didn't assign the sea its limits. It's just, well, it can't go on dry ground. Something different when marking out the foundations of the earth for them. Let's see, we got to keep rolling here. Now, here's this wisdom of his wisdom. Now, there is a word that 1,428 times out of 5,600 times, if they want to use this word, it just means his. Him, he. These are pretty consistent. You can see that. Let's see. Oh, man. Let's see. This wisdom is justified by all her children. I think I wanted to take a harder look at that. I think it's because, here in wisdom by all of her children. Now let's look up the word her here. Can you see this? This is what I want you to focus on. Of her. It says his brethren. his brethren. Can I get a witness that that's weird from anybody, even if Matt's the only one talking right now? Can I get a witness that that's weird? They translated it of her and Dr. Heiser. You can spend 15 grand a year using that logo software, and he just blew it right off. They kept it going with the argument open for the mother wisdom. Well, it's right there, but no, I don't really believe it. It's not. And he's the guy that goes, it's like, I don't know enough Hebrew. Did I miss something there? We'll go back over it again because I don't. I mean, this would be a pretty strong accusation. Dr. Heiser just read it. Everybody else read it. Here's the Greek. Here's the English translations. Here's the Strong's semi-exhaustive concordance. And we haven't even gotten to where they left this word off. They didn't even, it's Sophia here, and they just left it out. There's, this is a word. But we're dealing with here, the one that he, like it's a plausible question. Does this teach that Jesus is one of wisdom's creation? Because wisdom is justified by all her children, and Jesus was the wisest of them all. And when you click on that word, you see it's Strong's Greek 846. It is used, they say, 5,606 times. Of that, 1,428 are what they say is this word. And this is how they break it down. You can, we'll be able to find it, or, they don't even have it. It's right here, close to the bottom. Strong root word. And once again, we'll jump, of her, staying right in line, clicking it, expecting it to be translating a lot of hers in here, or maybe sometimes never a her. That word means his path. The food for John the Baptist was locusts. And if they're going to get baptized by him, it's going to be by a him. So why am I the one called to tell you that? And why are you called to be here listening if we're just going to keep going, faking, acting like, I think we got something here. We got something here. And of course, they don't have enough room to show it because Luke should be in there, right? Because I got here from Luke, but they end at Mark and they don't even give us a chance to see them all. Better make sure they don't. No, they don't. That should be something for you. What's this word? Well, it's got a concordance number. It's used 43 times. Shouldn't there be a win? Or which, win or which, or, instead of just plain wisdom, the wisdom, win wisdom, not to give it its what it is. It's Sophia. It's what God gives us, knowledge. It's wisdom. It's not a female God up there. And one, look at it one more time. Obfuscation, lie. And it was justified, let's look at the whole verse. Let's read it. But wisdom is vindicated by all her children, yet wisdom is justified by all her children. her children. But this wisdom is proved right by all his children. How can I say that? Because right here, it's not her, it's this word, and every other time it's used, it's a he. His mother Mary, him. So I can't get tired. I can't act like I'm not on to something. I can't act like just because Dr. Heiser has, tons more followers in education than me, that I think he missed that on purpose because it doesn't sell no books. Yeah, it's weird. And English can be a deceptive language, and that's why they chose phonics. Because they knew it's too hard. People don't want to they want to say ain't. And I like the word ain't, and if they're told they can't say it, they want to hate the people that tell them. But they changed the word him to her for a reason, for the Atlantis lovers. Can't be any other reason. You can tell me whatever you want, but let's see what else we got here. 8:12. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence. I possess knowledge and discretion. Okay, so wisdom, the goddess of wisdom, that Sophia is more important than rubies, more to be desired than fine gold. She's sat down with, here's another one. I wanted to make sure I pointed out that this word is very mysterious. We don't need that open twice. Genesis 5:1. Okay, let's look at that in English. This is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he created him in the likeness of God. Okay, these were the ones that weren't formed out of the dust in Genesis chapter 2. So when we should be able to pick up on something here. Do I have it? In the likeness of Adam. In that day, he created Adam. And once again, now they show a little difference in the word. You see the one that's highlighted. Now slide over here. 120, 121. Here is the same A-D-A-M, A-D-A-M, same punctuations. But when you see the word right here in the middle of this word, where we call that a 7, you can see there's 2 dots there. They're not on here. But this man is Adam. It's confusing for you, I know, because that's the way that they wanted to hide the Nephilim. And the fact that let's pop on Adam, that's 2 out of 316 times. Here's Adam without the little punctuation marks, 2 out of 6 times. But also, that's given a whole different word that says there's 10 occurrences in all. Ki-Adam, Mi-Adam, Yuladam. Adam had relations in his wife. The first time Adam is used is Genesis 4:25. Really? These are the same, those generations of Adam. Now, come on. Who's been trying to warn you that they're doing all this? Wasn't it do, re, mi? How many times did they say that was used? 10? Oh, 6. And how many times was this used? It said 10, but here's 12. This Adam was created in 126, not or mentioned. Let him make him in our image, he said to the divine council. The man was created in Genesis 1:27 into God's image. He created them male and female, and he called them Adam. And then he's mentioned back in Genesis 5:1. Here we see again the two Adams that are really so much more. But these things are only confused for a reason. I wish we could go over them all right now. And this is how he creates Asa. He makes those things that he had done, and he made him in his likeness, that Adam. And there was no man to cultivate the ground. To love the earth is what that cultivate could mean. To cherish the earth. Next time they're using it, it's in the law of these type of men could be made unclean. It's the one God covenanted with through Moses. These are the men that no one is going to remember. There was a small town. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 13. I have also seen this example of wisdom under the sun. And it seemed great to me. There was a little city with few men in it, and a great king came against it and besieged it, building great siege works against it. But there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no one remembered that poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than might. Through the poor man's wisdom, though the poor man's wisdom is despised and his words not heard. Why would it be better? Why would it be better? The people in the city lived. Because some wise man didn't want to go fight the king, and they ran away. They didn't remember him, but the people that lived didn't care. You know why? They were alive. But the Christians want to believe, that God is fighting on the side of the Ukrainians and that they're not really, all that other stuff about them being Nazis. Every single bit of it's wrong and a lie.
A pillar of fire at night and confused Russian troops. It has some asking, are Ukrainians receiving heavenly help? On this week's episode of The Global Lane, CBN's Ukraine director explains, although his fellow...
I wonder if he thinks that wisdom is a girl.
Countrymen are showing incredible strength and resilience in the war with Russia. They're also seeing some divine intervention.
So basically, get out there and fight. When it happens here, you go fight too. God will protect you.
Of course, and everywhere we need food. We need basic needs.
How have you seen God intervene on behalf of the Ukrainian people? What do you know? What can you share?
Well, I can share that one brother shared an audio from a brother from the church. So he says that his son, he's a part of the military, and he was saying that that they were like in the dark night. They were holding their positions, and they discovered that that a lot of Russian Federation tanks and machines coming at them, and they might struggle defending themselves. And he picks up his phone and he calls his father. He says, "Dad, you have to pray right now. We're in a situation." So his father, he rings to other members of the church. They start praying, and then later, son gives a phone call and he says, "There's some miracle happened. It looked like some spaceship, like there was like an attack from the spaceship. There was some kind of a lightning was starting shooting from the sky, and like sparks were like spreading everywhere. And then on the morning they discovered that the whole machinery was destroyed. So they, like, all of those soldiers, they thought maybe it was done by some kind of a weapon that we didn't know about, or it was just God's intervention."
Wow.
So, and there was another occasion that we just got from.
Hold on one second here. I want to show you something I watched last night. And I think this is someone that was recommended to me by Tommy. At least I think I've heard him talk about it.
No fucking way. Get the hell out of here. Like they just disrespected him. And he said, he was begging them. He said, "I'm not a loser. I'm 42 years old and I'm the president and you can't do this to me." And then
And here's the PBS NewsHour. Remember, it's funded by oligarchs and the government, so you're not getting the truth from PBS, even though you think you are. You're just as bad as anything else out there, PBS. Analysis: Putin's claim that war on Ukraine is to target Nazis is absurd. Here's why. So he says he's going to fight those Nazis. So in case you don't know what's happening, there was supposed to be an agreement in 2014 called the Minsk Agreement, which after they overthrew the government in Ukraine, they kept shelling the people in eastern Ukraine, right, who didn't want to go along with the overthrow. And so those people are ethnic Russians. So they identify with Russia, and they didn't want to be part of this new undemocratic government. And so they would shell them, and they killed 14,000 of them over the last 8 years, even though there was supposed to be a ceasefire in 2015 called the Minsk Agreement. And so Putin says he's going in to stop that slaughter of those people in the east of Ukraine, which the Ukraine government hasn't stopped shelling. Now, that is true. Now, I'm also against his invasion. War is not a good idea. So, but here, there's PBS claiming that there is the claim of Nazis is wrong. And there was also even People magazine got into it. So here's Alex Rubinstein. So we're gonna lay this all out for you. This would be nice. He says, watch Yevhen Karas, the leader of Ukraine's neo-Nazi terror gang, C-14's speech from Kiev earlier this month. Straight from the horse's mouth, he dispels the many narratives pushed by the left, the mainstream media, and the State Department. So he's going to brag about he's not denying he's a Nazi, and he's going to brag that of all the influence they had in the coup, and that the fact that the coup wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the Nazis. Watch this. So he says Maidan was the victory of the nationalist ideas. That was the coup that took place. And he said that was the victory for the nationalist ideas. Well, what does nationalist mean? It means Nazi ideas, right? Okay. Nationalists were the key factor there, and clearly at the front lines. Now, there is a lot of speculation saying, well, there were only a few neo-Nazis. LGBT and foreign embassies are saying there were not much neo-Nazis in Maidan. Maybe about 10% of the real ideological ones. The thing is that such a thing can say only a moron that never was at war.
не знає, наскільки
And don't understand that those 10%, maybe even less, 8%,
відсотків, чи там навіть може даже менше, бо на старісті було навіть 8, ну наскільки це
but how much they are and how much more effective in the proportion of influence. So he's saying, yeah, we might have only been 10% or 8%, but what was our effect?
пропорції.
That's what he's saying. What was the proportion of our influence? How much what their effectiveness was? It was endless, he says. He says, if not for those 8% of neo-Nazis, the effectiveness of Maidan would have dropped by 90%. So he's saying most of the credit has to go to these right-wing nationalist neo-Nazis for the coup.
То тут не втічі.
So it's the numbers. It's not the point. Also, when they started firing on the crowds, people thought that was the government doing that. Turns out now there's lots of credible evidence that the Nazis were doing it.
І мова, так само як на Майдані. Зараз вже почали.
Like now, some left-wingers like Bowl Foundation and so on, they're trying to count numbers to diminish. So the reason why they're doing that is that now the West doesn't want to recognize the Nazis in Ukraine because it's bad for them. It's a bad look. And this guy is saying something like, there were that many nationalists, they had that much influence.
Вони були впливові. Та які впливові? Не було б націоналістів.
If not for the nationalists, that whole thing, meaning the coup, would have turned into a gay parade. That's what he said. So, okay. So now there's more. Matt, you want to comment on any of that?
Well, let's keep it rolling.
Okay, so here's more.
Але стільки зброї не
He says, we were now been given so much weaponry, not because some say the West is helping us. So they've been given all this weaponry from the West. And some say it's because they want to help you. And he says, no, that's not why.
тому що ми хороші, як нам кажуть, нам допомагає Захід, бо вони хочуть нам блага, тому що ми виконуємо
This is not because the West wants the best for us, but because we perform the tasks set by the West.
Заходу. Тому що ми єдині, хто готовий
Because we are the only ones who are ready to do them.
виконувати, бо нам весело, нам прикольно.
Because we have fun. We have fun killing and we have fun fighting.
Вбивати і прикольно воювати. І вони думають, вау, давайте вже думати.
And they're like, wow, let's see what's going to happen.
Тому виник цей новий альянс, про який говорить там.
And that is the reason for the new alliance, Turkey, Poland, Britain, and Ukraine. So he's saying, we're starting this whole new thing. There's going to be a whole new power alliance, and it doesn't rely on NATO.
Чина, Польща, Британія, Україна, то ми тут флагман. Тому що ми
We are the flagman here because we have started a war. He's taking credit for starting this war with Russia. We have started a war that has not been seen for 60 years.
і ми війну, якої не було вже останніх 60 років. Так от, уявіть,
So imagine how many weapons we have, how many veterans that we have.
які в нас ветеранів. А тепер уявіть,
And imagine Russia falls apart and it turns into 5 different Russians or something like that. We have the most javelins on the European continent. Maybe only the UK has more javelin missiles than they do.
Тільки Британії. Розумієте, цей потенціал.
The potential of those armed forces will immediately become a problem for all
Yeah,
those
so
who oppose us.
the Nazis have it. Get into something else, Jimmy. We don't need your
Armed
play-by-play.
as pawns of the West because we have fun killing. We have started a war. We have the most javelins on the European continent, and the European family has already collapsed, and Maidan would have been a gay parade if not for the Nazi influence. And so that guy's the leader of the C-14s. The C-14s was started as a youth wing of the Swoboda party, founded by Oleg Tenahambak. Is that how do you say his name, Max? Tianbach. And he's pictured there. Here he is shaking hands. So this guy, who's big neo-Nazi, shaking hands with this guy who's our president. C-14 signed an agreement with Kiev city government to patrol its streets in early 2018. And what happened? Well, months later, it began a campaign of pogroms against Romani camps. So that's gypsies, right? And so they're going around killing them.
They're beating them, and it was sort of an official city program that they went down to the train station or the train tracks and just pepper sprayed a bunch of very destitute Roma people and chased them away and brutalized them.
So let me just say C-14, the 14 in C-14 refers to the 14 words coined by American neo-Nazi David Lane And those words are, we must secure the existence of our people and future for white children. So, so the neo-Nazi Svoboda Party was co-founded by that guy I just showed you shaking hands with, Joe Biden, and a guy named Andrei Parubi, who served as the chairman of the Ukrainian parliament from 2016 to 2019. So do you see where I'm getting at when I start throwing around the term neo-Nazi intertwined with their government, and was welcomed at the U.S. Senate by Joe Biden's foreign policy man, Michael Carpenter. And this is from The Nation from 2019. 5 years ago, Ukraine's Maidan uprising ousted President Viktor Yanukovych to the cheers and support of the West. Politicians and analysts in the United States and Europe not only celebrated the uprising as a triumph of democracy, but denied reports of Maidan's ultra-nationalism, smearing those who warned about the dark side of the uprising as Moscow puppets and useful idiots. Freedom was on the march in Ukraine. So anybody who pointed this out was called a Putin puppet and a useful idiot, just like anybody who said Russiagate was garbage. Today, increasing reports of far-right violence, ultra-nationalism, and erosion of basic freedoms are giving a lie to the West's initial euphoria. There are neo-Nazi pogroms against the Roma, rampant attacks on feminists and LGBT groups, book bans, and state-sponsored glorification of Nazi collaborators. Post-Maidan Ukraine is the world's only nation to have a neo-Nazi formation in its armed forces. The Azov Battalion was initially formed out of the neo-Nazi gang, the Patriot of Ukraine, and here it is. That's their symbol. Arsen Avakov, the new Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, after the overthrow of the Yanukovych government, he issued in April 13, 2014, a decree authorizing creating the new paramilitary force from civilians up to 12,000 people. So, and then what happened? Well, initially a volunteer militia formed as the Azov Battalion, May 2014, during the 2014 pro-Russian unrest in Ukraine. Azov has since been incorporated into its arms by Ukraine's Ministry of Internal Affairs, just like I told you. The Azov Battalion is a far-right, this is from Military Wikipedia, is a far-right, all-volunteer infantry military unit forming part of the military reserve of National Guard of Ukraine. Okay. And its first combat experience was recapturing Mariupol from the pro-Russian separatist forces in June 2014.
Well, there you have it. So, there are arguments. I mean, but it's all a setup. They knew it. They knew what was happening. Thank you all for sticking around. We're going to be getting into the rocks here very soon. You saw that one. This one is something we got to check out.
Because I'm just saying, a simple question: Are these cannons for our human species? I mean, our human species from like the 1800s and the early 1900s, or is it like for a different human species which was bigger than us, like maybe between 2 and 3 meters, or like even taller than 3 meters? I'm just saying, because I'm looking at them, and I personally feel ridiculous when I compare myself. And look at the size of those wheels. I'm just saying, it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like complicating your life. And especially because many of these, they say they go back all the way to the 16th and 17th and 18th centuries. I mean, come on. And the only thing we have is like skits, like cartoonish type of paintings. That's what I'm saying. So it's like they created a history to say that the primitive people of the 16th and 17th centuries were using these cannons. Where you look at the wheels and you look at the size of the cannon and you look at the whole thing, it's like they created the whole history just to say that all the the fights between the castles and the ships and all that stuff were like that. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's much easier for me to accept that those who used these are the remains of a previous humanity. That's why they're so big, because the previous humanity, literally before us, before the 1800s, was pretty much between 2 and 3 meters high. That was a standard, or even like between 3 and 4 meters high, in honesty. So again, I look at them, and especially this one, and this one just leaves me totally.
You know that, I mean, that's unbelievable. Just to make one of those wheels, and what pulled it? A team of horses or a steam-powered steampunk tank? Absolutely incredible. Let's see what else we got going here. He's kicking back against Dr. Heiser also, but he's, still got.
Arden, who was like a king priest who had the job of protecting the covenant until injustice was found in him and he rebelled. Now, as I've said, the other view is that this is actually a reference to the enemy of God, which we call the devil or Satan. A recent proponent of this view is Michael Heiser. I've read his book, The Unseen Realm. I've read the detailed notes that you can get online. I've checked out all of his sources. It seems to me that in this case, he's overemphasizing the background from the ancient Near East and underemphasizing the background from the Old Testament itself. So what I've done is I've tried to explain the imagery in Ezekiel 28 using the background of the Old Testament itself. He does different things with the text. Instead of reading, you are the one sealing perfection, he says this is a word that doesn't occur anywhere else in the Old Testament, but it occurs in Aramaic and means a snake. This is a difficult proposal because he's proposing a word that doesn't occur anywhere else in Hebrew with the meaning of snake. He thinks he has 4 reasons for thinking that this is not an Adamic figure. He thinks that Ezekiel 28 has to be parallel to Isaiah 14. He thinks that Adam wouldn't have been called a cherub. He thinks that it's not appropriate for Adam to be filled with violence. And he doesn't think that Adam would have been arrogant about his beauty. I don't find those 4 reasons persuasive. I don't see any a priori reason why we have to interpret Ezekiel 28 the same way we read Isaiah 14. In Ezekiel 28, he describes this person as a covering cherub. Well, we know from the New Testament that the devil or Satan is an angel. Paul calls him an angel of light. In Matthew 24, the final judgment is reserved for the devil and his angels. So it seems to be clear that he is a supernatural being, an angelic being, but there's no evidence anywhere else in the Bible that he's a cherub. A cherub is one kind of angelic being, but there are many kinds of angelic beings. And we shouldn't jump to the assumption that just because the devil is an angelic being that he's actually a cherub. Cherubim are some kind of angelic being that have a gut.
Is that what I sound like? Is that what I sound like? I wonder sometimes. But anyway, I'm going to get to Dr. Heiser now and this ought to be a little bit, we're breaking ground here, people. And I'm going to, somebody's going to believe it. Here's Dr. Heiser again. And he's going to be getting into, did anybody ever, where's this 1/3 of the angels? And so we'll look at that. But Do I have some pictures pulled up? Did I really autopsy a trilobite? I sure did. Look at that. That was a trilobite. I took it off. Here was the base. I was showing these parts. I clipped off one corner and said, here's where it's going to be. Here's that perforated substance. You can see I trim. You just takes longer to do it because it's stone, but you can do it. Trim it around because these parts are all in the body, and you can find them and label them. You can see that this is two parts. What I basically did was I managed to go all the way around and lift off the pons, which they call the back of the trilobite. And you can see that if you'd flip this over, I show you that this is where it pulled it back in, and it, you can start to see the curve, where it would lay in there perfectly. And it just kept lining up, and everybody was getting into it. And the next thing you know, we had a pandemic. But yeah, the first autopsy was great. We need to do another one. But you know what? I feel like, my goodness, the only comparison, and this is where people will be like, and hopefully, how could it not share the pics? Oh, poo, boo. So here's the pics. Here's that perforated substance that, is in the books, and we'll get to it. Should I keep going and then go back and show you those other ones? Because I want to get to, this is how I would do it. And honestly, this is just, you flip it back over and where it would line up in here. This is the base, which would have been the trilobite. That's when I first flipped it. Hold on, I'm going to go quick on these pictures. Those exciting times. Honestly, I felt like, someday it's not going to be that hard to imagine that when we're doing it, or when whoever ends up doing it in a real laboratory instead of in a bus with no help. But the first time, just going like, I'm going to autopsy this trilobite. Took it down, trimmed it down step by step, went around the outside. I have more pictures. We're going to be looking at some of those. There, that dog was stolen by one of the arch enemies of the Bible. Had other we'll look at some of these, and I'm going to get into a little bit of that. This is an actual body part. And that's the body rock that fits it. It's the same thing. But because this leads to finding gold, we had already stopped showing people how to find gold, and we're only focusing on the Bible because we hadn't, like now, there is a full systematic theology concerning mud, flood, Armageddon, past. When we were doing this, once people understand this, they'll be able to walk to the gold, and it's going to be the biggest gold rush ever, but everybody's going to be using it for their own different reasons. Reserved in judgment, people. Let that sink in. And they're always there. You just go find them. You break out your anatomy books. I'll get the vernacular back down again and, walk right through it. It's time. The Bible, I'll have more time for the stones as of today. And boy, I'm telling you, man, I was into the stones. Oh my goodness, that's one hard stone right there. And when Randy came out, we both believed. We got out the saws. We did the first autopsies, and everything we said, we proved it to the people. They were coming in by the thousands. When we started saying we're just as right about the Bible, they were leaving by the thousands. And then I got banned because I had a difference of opinion about the epidemic. I used to take a lot of pictures and try to pick the best ones. And I'll do it again. Good picture there. I'd take pictures of everything. Yeah. That's how you find the metal in the stones. We got metal in us. I was testing. This was another Trilobite that I got, but it was such a terrible example. They just basically carved it into, not as good as the first one, but I was able to prove that it was a body part. Found an old cave with a guy that was had a 6-wheel vehicle. We were going to go find a place to live, but I didn't believe in Q, and so he left. But he helped me. He gave me $500. I needed it too. That's a magnifying glass showing the crystals in the telluride and how they meet and form in the brain. Dropped these in acid. These remained because it was a harder material, some sort of something that gets poured into your blood when you're in a panic. And believe me, these animals, beasts, creatures, living souls that were trapped in the flood with the other Weeadam type creatures, they were all in a panic. They were running for their lives. It was raining. And it wasn't going to stop for a long time. So that's what that rock started out with. And you can see I just kept working it down. You show what's going to be where, work it down with acid, show what's left. There'll be better ways to do it when you get a pure lab, but I was working in a bus by myself until Randy came and helped me. I'm always happy. I love the Lord. Oh, look, it's got my 153 nerves that make up the 150th great fish. There's 12 nerves in your brain paired. That makes 24. 62 paired in your spines and everything like that. And then your 5 sections of your brain, the cerebral cortex, the other parts, 24 plus 1, 24 plus 5 equals the 153 nerves. But it's not Kabbalah. It's just that the visions of Ezekiel, he didn't know how to put it in words because it was sealed up. Here's all the rocks I had to leave in Colorado, but I don't care. I can always find more. I'll walk right to them. Oh, I hurt my finger and it got degloved. And this part of my finger got ripped off to where only this part to right here was hanging on. The rest was just showing the bone. So PG-13 alert. Some of these get pretty graphic because I got gangrene. The hospital left grass and dirt on my tendon. And so after my lymph nodes did all of its rejection, it tried to make my finger fall off. So this was the original wound. But then the hospital, they admitted they gave me gangrene, but I was in a homeless situation because I had been deserted by so-called friends. Went to a convention to preach at the Rainbow Convention, came back, and within 2 weeks I got the gangrene. These are some of the things I was studying with my finger before it got infected with you know who. He was still acting like he wanted to learn everything that I taught, but now he doesn't believe anything I taught. These are not petrified wood. Those are body parts. That's why they break like that. That's why there's no tree rings ever in the middle. Just looks like bark, but it's body parts. And this is where they break their Hilesian cells. It's how they get their blood supply. There's no rings. That's not how trees grow. I know you don't want to believe in God. It's hard to believe it's the stones, but things rot when they die. They don't leach out the other things and then leach in the gemstones without rotting. It's so frustrating to have to deal with that. So there I am, my finger's still swollen, but the lymph nodes hasn't rejected it yet. I saw comets, I saw everything. Orbs, exploding stars. Even this map, the Eureka Trail, this picture's not good, but in the early 1950s, the road named Militia Road appeared on government maps and has been used ever since. But it was started 100 years earlier in 1855, and they did this and that, and then all of a sudden, new roads showed up, and one was called Militia Road, but they don't know anything about it. It started appearing on government maps, so there it was. They've been using it ever since. I couldn't go. See, this is what a tree stump looks like. It has rings that you can follow around it. Nothing like you just looked at in the so-called petrified forest. There I am on top of Mount Shasta waiting for the Neowise comet. Looking at the rocks. Oh, see how this letter is in here? It looks a lot like a Hebrew letter. And I believe that when God showed Moses that he wrote it with his fingertips, he was showing him rocks in the mountain and how to get the original letters for the alphabet. And the letters did mean what they mean. We've lost it. Don't trust any Jew, Torah-loving fakes today, but that's how we got our original alphabet. There's the dog that those evil people stole from me. He's a great friend. He was a good preacher when he was preaching right. I put the sign up and people would come by to talk to me and stuff. I like this truck, that Chevrolet Apache. It's kind of cool, huh? Hey, that was me when I was little. Remember, I just found these pictures on my phone. That's an old picture of me. Mount Shasta, accordion boy. Going home on Donner Pass, seeing everything with, just like I do. Body part, body part. Ooh, there's a body part, body part, body part. They'd eat people up there if they had to. 1966, change the markings, put it up. We got a whole new rewritten history. We got to sell it. Going to NASA. Going through Utah. Body part. Faker. More just, that's the way it goes in your body. Nephilim, Nephilim. Hey, where the Nephilim? There's my opal. Remember, I got it a little bit more cleaned up now, polished off some. I couldn't get a good picture of it. Travel became globalized in the second half of the 19th century. I'll bet it didn't. Oh, I had so many rocks. I broke so many rocks. Welcome to Flat Earth Nation. Let's look at body parts. Helical hearts. You can see they're trapped in motion. So the brick people are going to have to explain it sometime. What's going on? Did the bricks and all of it just happen to trace body parts? And do it there. Wasn't that nice that Weiser keeps coming back? He came back said hi on the show last night. I used to be so hard on him. And he was hard on me, but you know, I still love him, and I could, you know, we got a weird way of sticking together, that's for sure. Pretty well. I thought we left coincidence world a long time ago when we came to Flat Earth. That's what it's supposed to be about. It is not hard to imagine these helical hearts in motion in a body. It's not hard to imagine. Look at this one here. See how you can actually see, for those of you who watch the helical heart, you can almost see, oh, well, that one was twisting here. Wherever it was caught in the twist, I want to remind you, no one drowned in the flood. They were all preserved in judgment for the glittering sword, or like Sodom and Gomorrah, put out of their misery by our merciful God. Helical hearts in motion in a body. It's not hard to imagine because that's what it was. It's not hard to imagine that you should expect to find this right here. That's a gemstone, baby. You can carve that out, get a tiger eye. I'm waiting for some actual debate. Right, still waiting, Paco. What's going on here? Still waiting, Paco. This guy, Ruben, he's the dog I was babysitting when I hurt my finger. He's Ruben. He left his wife for a meth head. She overdosed and had to be taken to the hospital. She was trying to crawl in my busting, you know, I had counseled her before, but nobody would let her drive, and I didn't have a car license or anything else. So she died from being a meth addict. Okay, I had to go back to the hospital because my finger got infected. They left in here right where it got, ripped off, degloved. Grass and dirt was found in the tendon. So they had to hurt me. And then I had to do my rehab myself. And I was supposed to be cleaning up, but they just wanted to paint the bus and cost me so much money to move and stuff. So I went on a trip to find out good places to move and stuff. Stayed overnight in the middle of the forest and found them fracking for their planned plasma event. That's not a good picture. There is a good one. Body part. Or an old building, probably a body part. Welcome everybody to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. And who thinks maybe, just maybe, we have been looking at too small body parts when working in the midbrain. And now that, we read Genesis chapter 6 a little closer, and we see that the flood only went 15 cubits above the mountains. The bigger giants, the Nephilim, must have been laid down here with these. I'm not sure that I want to, stand by that height measurement, but I know that the mountains got washed away, so I'm not sure how deep the flood was. But this is when I started getting the fractal of, really, I've got to get bigger giants in my mind. Because I was thinking they were all, it's easy when they're 15 foot. But what if they're 3,000 feet? Really? Cracks as a part of their body parts. That's what they are. And the little dots, succulus points for veins and arteries. So I'm here just outside Moab at the Cain rest stop, and it used to be a part of the Spanish Trail. And we're going to start looking at the rocks. Still get out your anatomy books, and we won't just be looking at organs, but we'll be looking at muscles, body parts that broke off. When you see up at the top, things like what they call vitricated stone and things like that. What it really is just the heat that was brought when it was broken. Friction causes it. So all of the every indentation, every transition from a smooth part to a rough part to a cave will all be explained in your mind. You can see, this is softer, but you can see the pattern of the stones running in different ways that the muscles used to run. And how about the layers? And that's obviously like a vein or an artery. Now, when you look over here, you're going to see, instead of like a tiger's eye and a real small stone where the layers are together, and ooh, isn't that fantastic? When you see this, you can see the layers in big style from the ancient titans, from the world that was before we were created. Now, there's a good example of vitricated stone, and how it would have been broken off something a little bit harder. So it's a flat earth nation. I'm the one that's been saying this for 5 years now. And what
make that 7.5 now.
it would appear is that everybody else is changing their story, and I'm digging in for good reason. Because I love God, I love Jesus Christ, I love the organisms that live in me, and I want them to be happy. And I know that it's a very narrow road. That's why I want you to be happy and join me on it. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. It's a flat earth nation. You know I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I?
So that same town had the uranium building because they needed that big, oh, it's an atomic scare. Oh, no. This is a lake that I stayed at, witnessed to the people I could talk to, and just it was really a good chance to be alone. It was called Uwa Lake Campground. That's weird, huh? I stayed in this pyramid and camped there in Taos as part of the, when I went to visit the Hopi Indians. The Hopi Indians, they're mistaken. They're not, oh boy, everybody's wrong but the Hopi. No. Some old stones. Look at this. I still wish I had that garnet. Found it right where Victor Schauberger said it was. Look at the size of this olivine, aquamarine in a common term. Look at that. That's some gemstones. Everything paid off. I could go right to get, if you have the money, there's the original Heartstone. The one that the Lord showed me, the very first one. It had to be perfect, or I probably wouldn't have noticed it. There's the Linda Heartstone, the one that I held during my second peyote vision quest when I said, this is a heart and I'm going to somehow prove it. So I took it home and found I could dissolve it with medical grade hydrogen peroxide. It was very dangerous, but it sure did catch that freezing of the glittering sword right in action. You know, this was in motion. And it came out of that rock as I just kept bringing it down. Steps when I used to go look at the pictographs. And this is a town, Ouray, Colorado, some of the caves I visited. This is on top of the $1 Million Mile. Just a cave that's an obstruction. I used to do it a lot more, but I've been studying just strictly the Bible for a while. Transverse colon, I've got this. I've shown you my intestines. I wonder how many pictures I see. My phone was so full of pictures. Look at that. It still has it. I think that was a trachea. These are marbles of different size that are found outside when you're doing digging in places where no child could have ever played marbles. Hence my theories, you know, that were confirmed on the swastika, and why some marbles have, you know, this type of a situation going. Hallelujah. See how it was just not as set in time. And then that would make these agates, things that were swirling in the vortex at the exact moment it hit. All of these are marbles I found where no child could have ever been playing marbles, because I was, well, you've seen how deep I go in the mountains. The Trilobite. That's a bone. Found a bunch of them. Still see the blood parts in there. We could get those tested someday. This is what it looked like on the other side. This one just pulled open with just a little screwdriver and wiggle it open, and that's what it looked like. Some of these look better if I could just put a little more attention on them, right? Body parts. Reserved in stone. Living on a model of the eyeball Earth. It's not petrified wood. This is what it's like in your body. It only looks like wood. Please, please. A solid gemstone heart. A shoulder blade. A coccyx. This is the tailbone of a human. It's exactly what a tailbone of a human looks like. Hey, it's the Monroe Doctrine. We own everybody in South America now because we got cut out of giant. Here's giants in the scripture. If you ever want, take a screenshot of that if you want to look them up. Giants, singular, giants, plural. Raphaim. So we could go over this sometime. We have to learn ciphers and how they really, the Illuminati didn't put it right out there in the open. The Red Cross was in on it with the Nazis. They're still on it, giving the blood to the vampires. These are all elements being released into the bloodstream that is needed in other parts when you're in a panic. Something called the Battle of Megiddo, 1918. Oh, we studied so much. It's not petrified wood. It only looks like wood from certain points, but this isn't how trees grow. These is a heart that where the veins and things didn't fall off of it. Remember, most hearts, you just see these things break off and become little gemstones. This one here stayed together, so, you can finally see the heart the way it would run, you know, connected with the vena cava and everything else. That's what it is. Gold in this one. It's all right here for us, people. All we have to do is just quit playing that we don't have enough information and realize they're about to kill us. Maybe. But we can trace these things. They make it seem hard, but it's not. The pyramids were a body part that served as a function that got dressed up with limestone. Roman architecture on the Erie Canal. That's what brought me to the dance. This never stopped. This is chain mail, and it has the maker's thing on every single piece. Carved into chain mail. It all works together. It's all right there for you. Showing star forts. First one to show the 11-pointed star fort on the Statue of Liberty, if I do believe. Here's your basic. Here's your trilobite right here. They make this the body, they make this the head and the eyes. It's crossing over, you know, from your octave chiasm. The nerve endings they paint as eyeballs and go, yeah, we evolved twice. Once with water eyes and the first time with rock eyes. That's what they say, people, and you're buying it. You don't have to. There was that one body part you just saw. It had blood still in it. They made the lake in Mexico to look like an eyeball with the same nerve muscles running everywhere. They even show the blind spot. They knew Earth was an eyeball. Now you know it too. There's no slag glass. That's body part. That's a gemstone. Not going to go into vortex math right now. I believe that, still do. Did a lot of things to try to prove it. Used to have to save things on my phone because I didn't live where there's internet. I'd make a video, drive into town, post it, wait for the next day, and move on. This is underneath everywhere. This is the Maginot Line. And it went on for hundreds and hundreds of miles connecting the mountains. And it's underneath every city. They didn't build it for the war. They found it. It's all right there for us. I know the backstory on all these pictures, all this. What is everybody else's calling? How do we judge the people that you want to believe and put your eternal salvation on the line? Isn't that what this is about? Is there easy believism? Something to be warned about? What did the Bible teach us? What did the Bible teach us? Yes, yes. Be careful, be warned, be diligent.
There isn't a single passage in the Bible that teaches that Satan fell and took a third of the angels with him in primeval days, or at all. Zero. This is the basic problem. I'm going to bring up what I think is the main problem, and that is Peter and Jude reference this incident, and they do so in such a way that affirms that they believed that the sons of God who sinned, the angels that sinned, were supernatural beings. They're not humans. And what they add elements that they can't get.
You see, and he's going right down the road, and I'll interrupt if I want to tell you, beware. We've just studied the Adam, and they're not the we Adam. There were a different people, and his only problem is he won't go there because he loves the Trinity. And he has to make it work. And I'll be interrupting some more because there are verses that are going to, he is not the one that's right, Mr. Globetard.
From anywhere else, other than sources that know the original Mesopotamian backdrop. Now, that's a mouthful. What do I mean? Let's start with Peter. Again, this is unpacked in the Demons book and Reversing Hermon and Unseen Realm to some extent. Here's what Peter says. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned. Let's just stop there.
Let's stop
Peter,
there. Let's stop there, Dr. Heiser, because you're the first one that always reminds him that angels are messengers. It doesn't always, it's not, unless it precisely mentions it's a cherub seraphim, it doesn't have to mean, and we all know that those people before Adam were different and special. They were made in the image. We're all studying that. So you can't just drop this out, pick and choose when you want to use your knowledge of angels and when you just want to let it hang.
Mentions angels that sinned. If he did not spare the ancient world but preserved Noah, and then he goes to the Sodom and Gomorrah story. There's a chronology here. Angels that sinned, the flood, and then later the Sodom and Gomorrah story. Peter's discussing false teachers, and things that, happened in the Old Testament. He's using them, as a foil, these things that happen as a foil to just talk about false teachers. And the false teacher angle is going to become pretty important as well.
He's talking about the sin.
There. Peter mentions angels that sinned. If he did not spare the ancient world but preserved Noah, and then he goes to the Sodom and Gomorrah story. There's a chronology here. Angels that sinned, the flood.
There is a chronology here. And we should look at it through a lens of 1 John 3, verse 8. The second part of 1 John chapter 3, verse 8. We'll look at the second part. That the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. So if all of this, and you and I were known before the creation of this world, and the end was written from the beginning, why would, if we look at, we'll go back to the very beginning book, same chapter 3. Now, here comes the serpent. I don't care who he is, what he looked like, what he did, but he showed up looking for no good. This man, beast, whatever you want to say, serpent, this beast of the field, because that's what he was. He is more crafty than any of the other beasts of the field. And he's fallen in sin before Eve. He's already ready to trick her, do this and that. Oh my goodness, he was a big deceiver. Who sinned first? Why did God come in? Was this because of something that happened in heaven that they said, yeah, we're going to do a little thing on something I'm going to call dry ground? It had to be something like that. I didn't mean to yell. I meant to be it for emphasis, but Tommy would have said that was yelling. it upsets the dogs. I mean, otherwise, why would he come in and go like, did God actually say, doing all this and that, and being a liar and being punished for it? That didn't happen according to his, the genealogy that he's, just laid out here. There was sin somewhere up there before there was a here. And I think the Lord should be able to lead me to something else later, but for now, let's get back to Mr. Heiser.
And then later, the Sodom and Gomorrah story. Peter's discussing false teachers, and things that, happened in the Old Testament. He's using them, as a foil, these things that happen as a foil to just talk about false teachers. And the false teacher angle is going to be becoming pretty important as well. But let's isolate our discussion to this one thing: angels, plural, that sinned. What other event other than Genesis 6 could Peter possibly be thinking of? Where are there angels, plural, that sinned in the Old Testament before Noah, or any place?
Well, there was a serpent that was ready to tempt Adam's wife, the one called Eve, that was created in Genesis chapter 2. There was somebody there in Genesis chapter 3 that was in deep sin. Deep sin. And the nations were divided among the number of the sons of men. Deuteronomy 32, chapter 32, verse 8. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided the mankind. How did he do it? Well, he fixed the borders of the people according to the numbers of the sons of God. He had a number of sons of God that he created to be in charge of the land. In chapter 6, or from, he created them earlier in chapter 6. You got one last chance. Here's your nations. Spread out. We're going to get you guys to go multiply. But then they started losing years. So they started interbreeding tribes, and then they saw the women, and they just started saying, well, we're going to take them for sex. It doesn't mean, because the angels in heaven, those specific ones related to cherubim, seraphim, they're not created for sex. But beasts of the field and the other nations, the Cro-Magnons, Neanderthals, Denisovians, they were created for sex. And they were nations. Philistines, just because they were, had Nephilim in them like Goliath, doesn't mean that they weren't a nation anymore, and that in Abraham all the nations weren't going to be saved. There's a Moabite, and they're banned from, the way they treated, their nation is no more, but it's preserved in the seed line of Jesus Christ. And so they were supposed to do all this thing, all of these living things of all flesh. They all have the Spirit. If it's a living thing, that means it's that Genesis 1, the living Spirit. And so, they're still in charge in Genesis chapter 7, and they're going to get a flood. I have to embarrass myself because I don't know what verse I want to use. So I'm going to just type in Okay, so what happens in Luke chapter 10? Is there any time when, we could put it, when was the final, you're expelled, all of you? Let's just pick up Luke chapter 10. After this, the Lord appointed 72 others, because this was the second, and sent them on ahead of him 2 by 2 into every town and place where he himself was about to go. And he said to them, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his field. Go your way. Behold, I am sending you out as lambs in the midst of wolves. Carry no money bag, no knapsack, no sandals, and greet no one on the road. Whosever house you enter first, say, peace be to this house. And if a son of peace is there, your peace will rest on him. But if not, it will return to you. And remain in the same house, eating and drinking what they provide, for the laborer deserves his wages. Do not go from house to house. Whenever you enter a town and they receive you, eat what is set before you. Heal the sick in it and say to them, the kingdom of God has come near to you. But whenever you enter a town and they do not receive you, go into its streets and say, even the dust of your town that clings to your feet, we will wipe off against you. Nevertheless, know this, that the kingdom of God has come near to you. I tell you, it will be more bearable on that day for Sodom than for that town. Now, would it be easier to be encompassed about to the point of where fathers are eating their children? Or would you rather just get wiped out for your sin in just one big boom, there it goes? Sodom had it easier. That's why it was more bearable for Sodom than those in that town that day. So woe to these people. If you reject the one who rejects me, he will reject you. Now, the 72 are going to come back. They had nothing but success. Verse 72, the 72 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, what? I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Well, when did it happen? There's a pretty good, of when everything in Satan's eyes began to fall apart. He had this going on. They were still in the council. The angels were desirously seeing what's going on around here, this and that. And then, oh yeah, when it's getting close, it's coming upon you. And he sent it out just like he was going to send out, go to the lost sheep of Israel, because he'd been to all the towns. And that's when he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. I beheld. Four out of 58. And they were looking up to see where he was laid. And he said, I was watching Satan. And because they saw the signs. This is something that is active present tense. I look at, gaze, behold, I experience. This isn't something that, this is like if it's a vision, you write it down and say, here's what I observed. Here's what I saw. So it's not Jesus reminiscing about, I remember back in the day. We'll have to find a place for that. I was looking for ponds in situ. reading about it here. I was looking for it. It's been so long. I was looking under posterior perforated material instead of substance at first. It's just something that is a interpendicular ganglion. It might be black gold, whatever it is. It purifies the black goo before it gets into your brain stem. And they're attacking men and women, but mostly women's thalamus. And here is your basic, your Pons Trilobite after they, once they get it carved out. There's the eyeballs, and sometimes, it's like, oh, I see antennas even and stuff. Well, we know why they do that. They're nerves. It's all right there. Here's your Trilobite, people, right there. The Lord doesn't give away this information, and they've caused Parkinson's. They've done it all to you, and they're not done. And these things that they don't want your cells to die of apoptosis. They want them to die and stay in you and poison you. I had a lot of things about what's the creature, what's the creation, it looks like. Where's the sky? Where's the floodgates, the fowls? I think this was just as I was watching some other things. How I closed last night's sermon. I was loving the Lord so much last night. It was going so well. I don't even know if I finished that one. Let's start this one.
We have the same creator. We're all God's children. They're his heavenly children. We are his earthly children. And somehow there's this relationship between us and them and God going on here. And we have to figure out from other passages what that might be, what that is. So, by the way, is this a liberal idea? I referenced Bruce Waltke. I'm not going to click out to Waltke, but Waltke's a very famous evangelical Old Testament scholar. Taught at Dallas Seminary for years. He taught at Westminster Seminary for years. He taught at Regent up in Vancouver for years. I think he's still alive. I know he was in failing health. He's elderly now. But everybody knows who Bruce Waltke is in the evangelical world. Okay.
Never heard of him.
Newbie. So again, we have this plural and singular thing going on here. I would say this. The plurals make the point that as God governs the spiritual world with the participation of his heavenly host, they are his agents, so humans are God's agents on earth. The language of 126 and 127 that connect us and them and God, the fallout of that, the result of that, is that we are like them, they are like us. We have the same creator. How are we like each other and how are we like God? Well, the reason, let's take the easy one first. The way that we're both like God is God made them and us to be his representatives. This is what we talked about last week. We are God's representatives on earth. They are God's representatives in heaven, in the spiritual realm. What does that mean? It means we do stuff as God's proxy. We represent him. We are his agents. And so are they in their realm. Sometimes they're tasked to come up here. Sometimes humans are dragged up there. Okay, we get that. But typically, they serve God there. We serve God here. How are we like each other? Well, we're two sets of imagers. And in both cases, to be like God, God shares his attributes with them and with us so that we can mimic him. so that they can mimic him. They can be like him, we can be like him. Now, believe it or not, that is really important. It's not only important for us, it's important for the spiritual world. Because as you, again, read on, if you're new to Unseen Realm, you're going to keep reading in the book. We're going to talk about, well, how could the fall happen? Okay, what's up with that? And short version of my view is that all evil, not just the fall, all evil is the result of God's decision to make agents like himself and share his attributes with them to do that task. One of his attributes is freedom. Now, we are not as free as God is. We don't have any attribute like God has it. God has all of his attributes to the nth degree. There is no limitation. He is perfection. He has a perfect nature. All of his attributes, again, are, consummate. They can't be improved on. They are the nth degree. But he shares those with us and with them. And one of those is freedom. So God might be totally free, but we at least have the ability to exercise freedom, to make an uncoerced decision. Just defining it really simply.
God might probably be free. So God might be totally free. Well, how could a person even say that? Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to do it again. Type in here. Let's take a look at Romans 9, verse 16. How free are we? So then it is not of him who wills, nor of him who runs, but of God who shows mercy. Verse 15. For he said to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. So then, it is not of him that willeth, nor him that runneth, but on God that hath mercy. Why doth he still find fault? Because you're guilty. Why does he still find fault for those who don't do his will? I'll give you the same advice Paul did. Nay, but, O man, who art thou to repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why did thou make me thus? Or hath not the potter a right over the clay? From the same lump to make one part a vessel unto honor, and another part of that same clay a vessel unto dishonor. What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering vessels of wrath fitted unto destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory upon vessels of mercy, which he afore, like you were prepared, it says, if you believe God, to be transformed and adopted, elected, predestined. Many are called, few are chosen, to be prepared unto good glory. Whom he also called, not from the Jews only, but also from the Gentiles. Because that's how he has to do it. Because no one can withstand his will. he had to go to the highways and byways and compel people, and he made them stand. He made us want to live a life of willing obedience to where it's not a ripoff. It's not a ripoff. Nobody's getting ripped off. We were orphans, and now we're not. You can always go back to the orphanage and say, I don't want to serve the God that chose me. That's right there for you. If that would ever be appealing to you, it goes on to say that many are called and few are chosen, because some people are seeds planted by the road that they don't have nutrients. They sprout up and go, yeah, I want to be adopted. This is the greatest adoption. And then when they get old enough to leave, they just leave. It happens. I've seen it. But there are others who, with their last dollars, will go buy a Trilobite at an auction and wait till he gets the tools and the money and start taking it down and say, see, we are living stones that are told we're saved by grace for one reason: to do good works that glorify the name of Jesus. Because why was this all done? Because he will be glorified. It said in 1 John chapter 3, verse 8, that he came into the world to deal with sin. Sin, it was obviously before there was even Abraham, sin was brewing, and God knew it in heaven at the time of Job. Otherwise, why would somebody be like, I'm going to torture this man and kill those people just to prove a point? He's not godlike. Not godlike at all. So there's a 2-hour show. I am going to wrap it up and come back later tonight and see what else we've got going. I want to thank everybody that stayed with it. There were always people watching, few people communicating, and now's the time to get back in. I want to do more stones and things like that. The dragon Chinese marbles and everything. Yeah, this is China. China is running this show. Everybody in the world's mad at Russia right now, except China doesn't seem that mad at them. Guess what? This is their worldview against our worldview. 100 years ago, we thought we deserved the right to sell heroin in China and that they weren't white enough to do anything about it. So whatever they had going there, we took it down. It's all fake. Japan's in on it. China's in on it. We're in on it. The 6 members of the Security Council of the United Nations. The United Nations can do whatever they want. And then one of the major countries just go, nope, it's vetoed. Russia can veto. No, we didn't do a bad war. We veto it because they have that power that's been given to them. The world can just go, what can we do? We can just worry more. What if they launch nukes? It's hard to wrap it up. It's just like when you've finally been visiting for a while and maybe you watched the game with a friend, and then at the, when you're saying goodbye at the door, you shake hands and he finally goes like, my daughter's pregnant, man. You've been wanting to tell you all night. But at the door, when it's, it's too late to do anything about it, you pour it out and think about it. Next time, what can we do for these people? We can have one last chance for an un-millstone generation. They don't even know. They've heard about cell phones. They don't want to see a 5G tower, and there's no reason they have to. There can be a people that separate, that don't want to be of any part of what's going to be going down in the world for their planned annihilation. This is all planned. Have we forgotten that there are people out there dying of COVID, and other people are saying it was manufactured and released by bats from chemical weapons in China? And we got to, we can't prove that, but oh boy, it's not going away. We have got to, do I have all the logistics? No. Am I studying the Bible that it's clear to me there's going to be people that make it, and they're not the ones in the big cities saving up to defend their houses. No matter what they do, I'll just get a bigger safe room. Day 8 in Ukraine, how would you be doing in your safe room after 8 days? Because it took 5 days to get water to the Astrodome, and it was only a couple of miles away. FEMA was busy that week. Be instant, in season and out of season with praying. I'm going to be praying for you. I'm not going to be at the door with you anymore. You know this ministry. You know where it started. You know where it's at now. Used to talk to a lot of people at a time, talking to 5 or 6 right now. That's where the Lord has it. That's where it's going to stay for now. But eventually there will be a rescue. And this will remain a flat earth nation. And I'll never tell you anything else. I'm called to have your best interest at heart. It's in my own best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.